My name is Jackie Ward. I'm the founder and managing director of the Early Years Learning Hub. This episode is one of our practice sharing series where I invite teachers, educators and leaders to share their practice and tell us some of the things that work for them. Today I am joined by Stephanie Willey, who is a teacher and director of an early childhood service in Victoria, and we will be discussing Bush Kinder. Stephanie, would you like to tell our listeners a bit about yourself and your professional journey?
Sure, thanks Jackie. I'm a kindergarten teacher. I've been practicing 28 years and I currently am the coordinator of Yarralea Children's Centre in Alphington in Melbourne. We're a 44-place community-run children's centre providing integrated kindergarten for 3 to 5-year-olds. And a big part of our program is our Bush Kinder program. So yeah, I'm pleased to be able to talk to you about that today.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by Bush Kinder, so I'm really keen to hear all of your insights and all the ins and outs of how it works. So I guess to start off with just those sort of big picture questions, or what is it? And because, I feel like Bush Kinder or, whatever, forest schools, people go, I know about that, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. So generally speaking, I would classify those types of programs as outdoor-based learning programs. So what is a Bush Kinder and what are the benefits? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So Bush Kinder is a learning in nature program. The term Bush Kinder was coined by Doug Farger, who was the founder of Bush Kinder in Australia in 2011. And as you just mentioned, forest preschools and nature kindergartens and things have been around for over 50 years, in the Northern Hemisphere. But it was only in 2011 when it first started in Australia. I was really fortunate to be part of that by default because it was very hard to get it off the ground. You can imagine with the department regulations over 10 years ago, they hadn't come across something like this. And there was a pioneering group of educators and teachers and families that were able to get this off the ground. But right as they got it off the ground, the other teacher that had been employed to run the program broke his foot. And so Doug came to me and said, Steph, I need your help. I said, I can't possibly. I've got a 9-month-old baby. And he said, do you know anyone? And anyway, I got off the phone and I rang my mum, who lives a couple of hours away, and I said, can you come and help me for the next couple of Wednesdays? There's something I really want to do. And so she came down to Melbourne and looked after my little ones and brought him up for a breastfeed on a rock in the middle of the day. And yeah, that was in 2011, and that was really formative for me. It made a massive impact on me. And then when I started in my position at Yarralea Children's Centre, it's quite close in proximity. A lot of people had heard about the Bush Kinder happening at Westgarth Kindergarten in our community, and they were very interested, and so we invited Doug to come and speak at our annual general meeting. And from that, we set up a working group to look at creating our own program. But in the general sense is that the Bush Kinder or nature play programs, they are regular outings to a natural play space, the same natural play space over a period of time. So, and the work that I do in relation to my Bush Kinder work is that I'm part of the Early Childhood Outdoor Learning Network, the Eco Learning Network. And so the Eco Learning Network is a group of practitioners that are providing Bush Kinder and nature play programs within their settings and have come together as a not-for-profit, and we also provide training and resources in relation to Bush Kinder. And the centres that we work with in relation to Bush Kinder are ASEQA approved education and care services. So they're which are run by educators. And the main difference between what's happened in Australia and has happened on the other side of the world is it's come from an education base. The forest preschools and nature kindergartens in Scotland and things like that have come from more a forest school perspective. And a training around forest kindergarten and forest schools. But the movement in Australia it comes from education. It comes from teachers who have the pedagogy about teaching and learning with children. And the teaching and learning with children in nature comes from a very strong early year pedagogy perspective. And the other main difference is it's very place-based, and it's very connected with the country that you're on, thinking about the traditional peoples of the country that you're on and the local seasons and the changes that you see, and it's about developing a intimate relationship with the place. So and with that, in Australia, becomes that sense of connection to country and care for country, and hand in hand with that, with sustainability, which we've just touched on in another podcast as well. So it certainly draws on historical perspectives, but it's in its own right in Australia. It's quite different. And one of the other main reasons is, whilst programs are different, a lot of bush kinder or nature play kind of programs and the kind of work that we do in teaching and learning in this space is that mostly it's about children playing with what nature provides. So there's not often a lot of resources that are brought in to support the children's learning and play as well. So, I mean, look, every centre differs, and that's fine, because it has to really be based on your context and it has to be based on your philosophy and your pedagogy. But what I see mostly is, not a lot of resources being brought into the space.
It makes sense too, doesn't it? Because children naturally want to climb trees. They want to pick up leaves and have collections of leaves or stones or sticks or whatever, like it kind of, we throw all these other things at them, like climb on this, plastic piece of play equipment, but they would be just as happy to climb over rocks and things like that, wouldn't they? So
yeah. And those things are more, the benefit is that it's more unpredictable when you're climbing on a climbing A-frame. All of the bars are the same diameter, they're all the same spaced apart. You climb it once, you've done it, and so then, in order for children to then get a sense of adventure and risk-taking, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about as well, then they're wanting to jump off the top, because they've already climbed it, and so if you've got a tree, I mean, the branches are different heights and thicknesses, and you've actually got to use your brain, when you're navigating that. Or if you're climbing a pile of rocks, having to think about where you place your feet, where you place your hands, are there any of the rocks loose and moving? And so the challenge and therefore the learning and the skill development is much greater when you've got those natural elements as well.
And as conditions change too, if it's been raining, and they'll be slipperier and all sorts of different things. So there's lots of opportunities to think about risk mitigation and all that kind of stuff with those opportunities. So I guess one of the things I would like to know on your thoughts on are, what are some of the rich learning happening outdoors that's not available or as rich indoors? So what do you think? We talked a little bit about that climbing then. That's definitely a good example where there isn't as much complexity in sort of process materials, I guess. But what are your thoughts about indoors versus outdoors? I mean, I'm sure it sounds to me like you don't do that, your outdoor learning program every day. Is that right? Is it just some days or every day?
So our Bush Kinder program is an extension of I often refer to it as our home kinder program. So our Bush Kinder program is an extension of that. It started in 2013, and so it's been operating over 10 years now. And so what I mean by that is that at our centre, the children spend a lot of time outdoors. They can have access to all weather. They've got waterproof clothing, so they can play in the rain, they can get dirty, they can play in the mud. We've got sticks, we've got rocks, we've got lots of natural materials. So our Bush Kinder program is an extension of what they're experiencing in the home kinder setting as well. And so the way it works for us, it started as half days. It's now moved to a longer day, but we have one group attend their kindergarten offering on a Monday and a Tuesday. Their Monday is their Bush Kinder day, so they can get dropped off in the Darebin Parklands, where we do our program from 8 a.m, and we walk back to the centre, which is about a 1 kilometre meander with a group of 27 4-year-olds. We walk back at 3:30. So that used to be, when we first started, that used to be 12 o'clock, and then it got extended to 1 o'clock because it just wasn't enough time, and then now it's been extended to 3:30. Some children sometimes get picked up at 3:30, but the others walk back. to the centre as well. And so then the other group that comes later in the week, they come Thursday, Friday, they come to their bush kinder program on the Thursday, and they come to their home kinder on the Friday. And we actually have, in the last couple of years, with long day care hours increasing and things, we've increasingly got more children doing both groups. So some of the children are actually attending 2 days of bush kinder as well. So they're outdoors all day between 8 till 3:30.
And so what would you say to those people that say, well, when do children do their letter writing and their, cutting and their threadings or whatever else like that? When do they do those more sort of, I guess, school readiness-y type things? And or do you care and your families care about them?
Look, I think everyone cares about having all the skills you need and your toolkit for life. We talk a lot about life preparedness as opposed to school readiness. And there's lots of opportunities available at Bush Kinder that really support life preparedness. And we do a lot of making the learning visible. So, if you don't point out some of those things, it's a bit hard to see the learning. So as early childhood educators, I think early in my career when I might have a parent say, oh, but, where's the literacy or where's the numeracy or, something like that. I wouldn't be quite sure what to say. Increasingly, I say, yes, of course we do literacy, of course we do numeracy, and this is what it looks like in a play-based environment at the home kinder and the bush kinder. So the bush kinder, there's a lot of fine motor things done with sticks. There's a lot of drawing in the dirt and things like that. So and in the mud. So there's elements of fine motor sort of control there. We also have fire as part of our program. So we've got fire steels that the children can spark with. And that's one of our best fine motor strengthening, experiences. It's very safe. You actually can't make a spark unless you have, strong hand strength and, good dexterity, with your hands. A lot of adults, struggle as well. It's actually a really good regulatory tool as well. We find that some children that are quite frustrated, you've got to be quite firm with your, and sometimes even when I say to them, do it like you're really cross, and you have to rub the two bits of metal together and then you get a spark. And so that's another thing that they do that supports their fine motor. And we've also got at our program, we've got a slack line that's set up that's got it's between two trees, and it's got like a tightrope. Imagine a tightrope, but it's also got an overhead as well. So they have to extend out their whole body and walk across, holding on with their hands and their feet across this slack line, because there's a lot of really good research. There's a great book called Angela Hanscom, who's an OT, and she wrote a book called Balanced and Barefoot, and she talks about children not having well-developed core strength, and particularly inner core, to help them do what they need to do, and particularly do what they need to do as far as sitting in chairs for long periods of time when they go into formal schooling. So things like the slackline and the hanging and the crawling and the running and the rolling and those sorts of things are really good for that core strength. And I think that sort of loops back to some of that initial question, Jackie, about what can you do, what's different, and some of those opportunities that I just mentioned are quite different to what you can do inside. So the opportunity to run, I often say to families, it's like a free OT session. When you roll down the hill, you get lots of, really good proprioceptive information through your body, which is very calming and settling to your brain. Sensorially, it's much different than being inside. When you're inside, there's kind of a saying, you can't climb the walls when there are none. And when you're out of that classroom setting, increasingly they're putting more and more children in classrooms. And if you've got, 30 children inside a classroom, the aesthetics and the acoustics and the demands that places on children are really hard for children to manage, particularly our neurodivergent children. When you're outdoors, the acoustics are different. There's other calming kind of benefits as well. And there's a lot of opportunity to just be. So I really like to tap into that being part of our framework as well, and being able to go slow. And it's hard, and we see educators have trouble with being able to go slow. Once you take away all the stuff, once you take away the phone ringing and the doorbell ringing and mixing the paints and all the stuff, sometimes people can feel a little bit redundant, a little bit not sure what to do. And I'll say, sit down, make yourself available to children. And that's the gift that we give them, that we have educators that are available to them. The relationships and the conversation that is built both between educators and children and each other is one of the great benefits of the program that we see, that gets a bit lost in the busy and for the children, once you take all the stuff away, they are each other's biggest resource. So the communication and the play and the social skills and the problem solving that you see the children do, is far superior than what I see happening within the sort of classroom setting as well.
I could definitely
we see lots of benefits, and it changes. We started with a strong sustainability perspective of and also we started with a strong connection to community perspective as well, and connection to country. And then over the 10 years, it has kind of ebbed and morphed, and we now see great benefits around mental health, anxiety. Children having different opportunities to lead and follow across the environments, because somebody that might really thrive in the kind of kindergarten setting, they might have other challenges in the outdoor setting, but then similarly somebody that might be really challenged in the classroom setting can really thrive and become a great leader in that outdoor setting as well.
I love that. And I really see that there's probably very natural opportunities for children to become more resilient now, because like if, for example, if you're stacking, I don't know, your flat wooden blocks up, they're probably all going to stack, but if you're trying to stack rocks, they're not going to, and so you're going to have to get used to that. Oh, that didn't work out, I've got to try again, or a different way, or whatever. Oh, you've been very
100%,
inspirational for
100%.
me.
And I think the other thing is I often say to people that nature play is not sustainability, that sustainability is sort of much more than that, but nature play is a great vehicle for sustainability. So there's often things that come up when you're outdoors in nature that can really help you lean into conversations about sustainability, about connection to country, and about perspectives of Indigenous perspectives and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives as well. So it's a really great vehicle for that, quite naturally,
Rich
and
learning,
absolutely a natural way to build resilience as well. And we often get feedback from parents and also early years teachers about how resilient the children are, but also how good their stamina is as well, and also their creativity as well. There's lots of opportunities for creativity, and it takes a little bit of time. Like, it doesn't come naturally. Some children are kind of surprised a little bit, and some families as to what do you mean we're going to be there sort of all day, and I go to the park and I'm bored after half an hour. But when you've got a group of children and they are each other's best resource, be happier. But it does take absolutely some adjusting. But we have a family visit beforehand, so we invite families to come along. We also have an information book. We also have an information night, so we give families a lot of information in forms that suit them, but particularly when they all come and visit with a family visit on the weekend prior to starting. We don't start till March, so we have February doing a lot of our preparation, learning about all of the safety and sort of all the rules and things like that, and then we start in March. So we've got a good lead up time of sort of also getting to know everybody and things as well.
All right, so this leads me to the next one, because I've been dying to know about, all the practicalities of this. So, for example, how do you manage bathroom needs, hygiene, sleep, rest, if you're out for the whole day, sun protection? Can you tell us a little bit about that, Stephanie? Because I bet you there's a lot of educators listening going, but how does that work? But how does that work?
And usually when I do a presentation, I've got a whole slide on toilets. So
yeah.
I should have bought a poster, because that's the biggest question we get, is around the practicalities. And actually the training that I deliver with my my other educators in the early years Outdoor Learning Network has a big section of the training. It's a 3-day training package, and it has a big proportion of practicalities. There's also 2 really good ASEQA fact sheets about, and so maybe you might be able to link those as well. So there's a fact sheet about the legislation about in nature programs, because of course we have to do all of the same, meet the same regulations and things. So they're quite good guides. But the nuts and bolts, I guess, we have a camping toilet, like a portaloo, kind of toilet that we use, and we have a toilet tent as well. As I said, we're there all day, so we need a pretty robust, set up. The staff go to the centre in the morning at 7:30. They walk down to the parklands. It takes them about 10 minutes. They push cruisers. We used to pull wagons, but it was not good for people's backs. So we push cruisers, which, are the things that, that families attach to their bikes that you can put a couple of children in. You can also use them like a pusher. And so we use those to transport our equipment. And we've also got a shipping container on site that the rangers rent us some space in. And we have some of our equipment there as well. So the staff go and they'll set up the toilet and the toilet tent, and then they'll also set up some boundaries. So depending on whether it's our 4-year-old program or our 3-year-old program, they've just started last term actually. They only go for the morning, and they have a really clear boundary, which is rope along the ground, so that they could really see, where it is. The older children, we have parts of the site, a natural boundary, like this tree, long grass. But we've also got a couple of witches' hats or cones that, mark it out. At the start of the program in March, we do lots of walking the boundary. But, at this time of year, you could have nothing and they'd know exactly where they need to be. They love that sense of responsibility. They remind people about each other. You rolled out of the boundary, so they make sure of that. So we also, with our toilet setup, we also have a thing of water that's got a tap and some soap, so they're able to wash their hands. Inside our toilet tent, there's sort of pockets, and that's where we hang our emergency management sort of medical needs of the children. They come from the centre, any EpiPens or things like that, and there's a space for them in the side of that tent as well. And we also have a big tarpaulin that is kind of like our meeting point. And so when families arrive, they all put their bags there. If it was a day that was raining a lot, we would probably cover up the bags with the tarp, because it's one thing for, us to get wet, that's fine. But if everything in your bag gets wet and all your spare clothes are wet or your lunch is wet or something like that, it's sort of less fun. So that's our sort of meeting point where all of our bags go. And when we gather for lunch and when we gather for rest time, we always come together onto that space. And we spend the whole of first term, we call that our Bush Kinder site. And we spent the whole of first term just at our site, really building an intimate knowledge with just that one space. And we've been going to that one space for 10 years. And in term 2, we start doing walks around the parklands and we go and visit other places, but we always return to our base, to our site. We also have first aid. All the staff have a bum bag on where they have first aid equipment. We also have an EpiPen with us. We have a centre mobile phone for contact. We also have a centre iPad that the families use to sign in on in the morning. And that's about it, really.
Sounds like you got it all covered. I love it. Is there any?
It's a big commitment, but we've got some fabulous staff that are.
Oh, I can imagine it's an amazing day.
Committed.
Yeah, yeah. And I think about, like, always talk about, we do an indoor-outdoor program at my preschool, and everyone comments, we get visitors, and it's so lovely in this preschool. Every time you spread children out, you've always got, a lot more calm. And if you've got a free flow where children can, if I want to be outside and I want to climb, I can just be there. I don't have to, get in trouble because I'm climbing on the furniture inside or whatever. But I forgot what I was going to say. But it's worth it because it's a much nicer place to work. It's a peaceful environment for the children, but also for the teachers and educators. So I can imagine that would be a really nice, beautiful,
Yeah.
enriching way to have your workday go. Is
Yeah,
there
and it's funny you
any?
say that, yeah, because often when we recruit people, we're very open about what it is that we're looking for and what it is that we offer. And I'll often say to people, it's a little bit like camping, that you have to do a bit of hard
Mm,
work and then you get to have a really nice time, and then you've got to do a bit of hard work, to pack up. And so a lot of people, you're either a camper or you're not, and so that sort of really resonates, with people. But I guess I hadn't really realised quite how good it was for staff wellbeing, and it was only
mm,
earlier this year that we were sort of starting off the year with a yarning circle, and we were talking to one of the educators who's been with us, coming up to 20 years. She only moved into that bush kinder program over the last couple of years, and she actually commented about how much she enjoys it, for her and for her well-being. And
mm.
so, as I said earlier, like, I think as the years go on, you see the benefits, and sometimes it's in sort of unexpected
Way.
places as well. But people definitely, they want to do this kind of teaching and learning. And it
Yeah.
does have to be the right fit. It's not for everybody, and particularly educators that really need to feel needed, they do struggle a bit, because sometimes the children don't need you, and sometimes you just have to sit and observe and be available. But that's quite different to how it feels sort of in the centre-based, classroom, when there's always something to do.
To do,
And then
yeah,
what that, and then I think that critical reflection about what does that mean for me as a teacher and an educator is a really core part of the pedagogy to be, really thinking about, because it can really challenge that, but in a really positive way.
yeah, that's so true. That's so naturally aligned to me. Well, I go, job well done for me. If people can be
Yeah.
independent, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
set
Yeah,
people
that's
up for
right. That's
success.
right.
Yeah, but it's not
Yeah,
all
that's right.
necessarily the way everyone thinks, is it?
Yeah, yeah. I know, that's what I say. I say, oh, if they don't need you, and this time of the year, I mean, you're really hoping they don't need you,
Yeah,
and so, but you do have to say, I often say that, I'll say, often you'll find the children won't need you, and that's okay. Yeah.
yeah. So is there ever any, like, have you got any parameters where you don't go out? Like, for example, if it's really hot, a 40-degree day or something, have you got sort of that in your
Yeah, yeah,
policy?
yeah. Look, we've got like a 20-page, benefit risk assessment, and I'm really committed to the benefit part of that. So um, we adapted the ASEQA template, risk assessment template, to make it a benefit risk assessment. So it's really important to me to first and foremost look at the benefits of why you're doing something, because if it didn't have a benefit and it only had risks, well, then you really
You wouldn't
shouldn't
do
do
it.
it. It becomes a hazard, and it just doesn't weigh up. And if you read a 20-page document full of risks, well, again, no thanks. That sounds terrible. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah,
But
that's
when
stressing me
you
out.
look at it, yeah. But when you look at it as what the benefits are, and then you weigh it up with the risks, and then you put in what your mitigating, strategies are, and then you reevaluate it, you can see where the benefits are, and that it is worth any of the small risks that are involved. So, yes, we've got a comprehensive assessment that includes trees and rocks and insects, snakes and dogs and community. And we also, when we walk back, we have to do a rail crossing, and then also quite a busy road crossing. So all of our road safety sort of is incorporated, as well. So it forms a big part of the program, but it really supports us to feel very confident in what we do. And when we are speaking to authorised officers, for example, about our program, we're able to demonstrate that we've thought things through really well. So, asking about the weather, if the weather is dangerous, if there is torrential rain forecast, or thunderstorms, or winds over 40 kilometres, then we cancel and we just do business as usual at the centre, and we send
Yeah,
everybody a message. And because we go every week, it's not a big deal. We just say Bush Kinder is cancelled, or sometimes due to staffing, we can't manage it. If we've got,
yeah,
if we've got one staff away, and we can get somebody to fill in that knows the program, program, then we can do it. But if we've got one staff away or two, and if we have to rely on agency or something, then we won't go, because
Yeah.
you just really need everybody on board and understanding, and it makes it quite difficult if you don't have that. So and so very hot. Yeah, the heat. We have parameters around as well. Sometimes we might just go to the morning if we feel like we can still walk back, in the middle of the day and it sort of hasn't gotten too hot. But more often than not, it's very clear in our assessment what the parameters are, and when we cancel as well.
Well, that sounds amazing, and I had on my list about communicating with families, but I think you've already spoken to that, and I loved. Can I just reiterate, because I didn't say it at the time? Making learning visible for families is, I think, that is our job, and that is one of, in my opinion, the reasons why we document, is to show families this is what your child is learning when they're playing, whether it's where
Yeah.
you're translating that for families because they don't necessarily know that. So I love the fact that you
Yeah.
talked about that idea of showing families we're not just climbing on rocks. These are all the different things we're learning. These are the physical skills, the cognitive skills, the social skills, like there's lots of really
Yeah,
rich learning
100%.
happening with that,
And we've got a A3 group learning journal that we use to facilitate that. So the A3 big sketchbook comes with us. The children can contribute to it. There's also a parent helper roster, and if a parent wants to come and join us for the morning, they'll come and join us, and we will ask them to reflect on their time with us, and they can write it in the learning journal as well, and the children can draw and write in there. And sometimes they'll even, over the winter when we have fires, we do a lot of cooking on the fire, toasting their sandwiches. There's a whole cookbook that we've created, cooking corn and marshmallows, of course, they're always first. S'mores, bananas with choc chips, popcorn, potatoes. It goes on and on. But after the fire, we also use the charcoal. So we'll take the charcoal back to the Yarralee and do drawing with it. But sometimes they'll draw directly onto the sketchbook, or sometimes on the rocks and the trees that are on the site, with the charcoal from the fire as well, which is really lovely for creativity as well.
And just that
And
change in form too, isn't it? From when it was
yeah,
like a green branch to a dry branch to charcoal after it's been in the
yeah.
fire. Love it.
There's all your science, all your STEM.
Yeah.
It's not hard to find all of that. So as you said, making that learning visible and being able to say to families, yeah, we do numeracy. This is what it looks like. I've had a child count up to 150 sticks with me. And this is how we do science. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for citizen science and looking up. I wonder what that is, and I wonder how we could find out, and who would be the expert at birds, or we found an eggshell the other day. We had to work that out. There's always an opportunity to explore dead and death and life cycles. We know that comes up, so we're always ready for that. And so when we check the site in the morning, we'll always note if there's something of interest there, and we'll leave it there. Rubbish that's not unsafe, or if it is something that has died, we'll leave it there. But we'll note it, and we'll say it to each other that we've noticed it, and we'll let a child discover it, and then together we'll support them with the I wonder questions to work it out, which is just such a privilege to be part of as children, learning those really formative skills. And I often talk to families about, and educators that I'm training, that it's like learning a new language, and it's like learning the new language of nature play. And as they learn the language, then they teach their families the language of nature play. And it's really interesting, as the year goes on, children start saying, I went to bush kinder on the weekend, and they're starting to make impact in their family, whereas the family would typically go up the road to the playground. And the child says, I want to go to bush kinder, and the family sort of thinks, well, I don't know what to do there. And the child leads and says, I'll show you. This is what you do here, and you see them learn that language, and you see the families, come along, for the journey as well, which is really amazing, because every year, even when we're super comfortable, we've been doing it over 10 years, we have to wind back the clock. We have to remind ourselves that this is new for families. This challenges their trust, this challenges what they understand to be education, and yeah, they don't really understand it. So as they have more experience, or they come and be parent helper, or they find out more information, it's really lovely to see how they come to understand the richness of it
Of the learning,
and
yeah.
the benefits for their child. Yeah.
I think that's been an amazing conversation. I'm very inspired, so I can't wait to think about, like, I was, calculating where is there some, something similar in my area. I'm sort of in the inner west of Sydney, so I'm not sure where we had, but even that there's a fact in our own preschool, sort of there's a front yard that we never really go to, and there's sort of a gap in between our fence and before you get to, so even just within our own
Yep.
space, we could be engaging more with the
Yeah.
natural elements within our own space. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm very
100%. And
excited.
it doesn't have to be, any spectacular bush at all. And the training I do, I'll often go and work with centres around, spaces, and sometimes it'll literally be like that. It'll literally be about like that little bit just next door or out the back or whatever. What about that? And educators will say, oh, I never really thought of that. But yeah, just those little places can be really, really beneficial little places as well.
Good, yeah, good start. All right, well, I'm going to let you go, and I'll put the links into the ASEQA fact sheets. That was great sharing of information there, Stephanie. And thank you again for your time and sharing your wonderful knowledge and expertise, and what a interesting podcast it's been. Thank you so much.
No worries, Jackie.
And don't forget, listeners, to follow us and make sure you don't miss out on the next episode. See you soon.